Hello, welcome back to Historic Brawl and the League. We're in Season 4. You seem to like the commentary, so I'm going back as I have a little bit of spare time to add my thoughts to this. I'm playing Kinnan in this match. Kinnan's a new one for me. I thought I'd bring it as it's the typical powerful commander that you would worry about for a competitive scene. I don't know about the deck personally, having played it for a little bit, but I'm still not the most experienced player with Kinnan, so maybe take these sort of results with a little bit of a grain of salt. But here against Crucias, mulliganing quite aggressively with Kinnan is usually a good idea, and so I found a hand with a 1-drop ramp piece, 2-drop ramp piece, and some protection. So judged that was good enough here. Power word kill coming down, not the biggest issue. Bigger issue is if they keep removing your mana dorks, because then you just don't have mana anymore. If they keep removing Kinnan, it's not as big a deal. Because eventually you're not going to cast Kinnan for 8 mana, you're just going to cast your big powerful spell for 8 mana, and that's probably going to do it. But yeah, here just developing the mana dorks. I'm ready to play Kinnan next turn plus negate or Veil of Summer or something like that. None of my spells can really hit Crucias, but that's fine. It doesn't matter what Crucias does, it matters what happens from the Crucias, and what spells actually come down from the opponent here. Yeah, so really expecting just to play Kinnan next turn, hold some protection up, and then start using that ability. Pretty straightforward game plan from here, not much to really add. The Crucias deck, interestingly enough, is not a combo deck, as a lot of them, at least that I've seen, are. It's the reanimator version, and it has a lot of removal in black and red, both sweepers and spot removal, which could still be an issue, but not with this hand. This hand is pretty well set against it with both Negate and Veil of Summer, holding up 4 mana with both the Sentinel and the Stalwart. However, okay, yes, that's not actually the case here, as I need another creature to untap, or artifact to untap, or tap rather. So actually I only have access to 2 mana. But that should be enough, especially when Bank Job comes down, so it's pretty happy. I'm interested also in Lazotep plating, because as well as giving my board hexproof, I also amass a token, which will give me that access to 2 more mana. But if there's no reason to fire it off, I shouldn't play it at all. So I'm just sitting back until something comes down. Lazotep plating giving me that extra 1/1 to tap now, so I'm very happy to do this. The only punish for this is if they have a cut down or fatal push or something along those lines, some 1 mana removal, before I can get the mana to play Veil of Summer or something like that. Here, yep, just gonna sit back, probably play Kinnan on end step, see what we get. Still have protection in hand, so it's not that big an issue even if I whiff for a couple turns, especially when Veil of Summer is going to redraw a card as well. I have Negate up as well for a board wipe, so I'm pretty set against those. They really have to double spell into some nasty stuff, and Key to the Archive already is not one of those. Deciding to negate here, I'm in hindsight, I'm not actually sure this was that necessary, but it does ramp them up to unearth the Cityscape Leveler, which we can see in their graveyard. It's a little annoying, but actually it's not that big a deal, because they either kill a mana dork, which at this point we have plenty of, or they kill Kinnan, which, as I said earlier, is not actually a big issue at all, as we are always able to recast it in this position, and if we're not recasting, we're going to top deck some powerful stuff and then go off with that. Seeing Old Gnawbone here is the only big thing, makes a lot of sense to play it, but on this board as well, it's especially effective if we can attack, get 7 treasures. That's 14 mana with the Kinnan, which is 2 activations just from that attack alone. Just extremely powerful. Coma as well, amazing draw. I basically always want to hardcast this because that is just that powerful, and If we look at the average sort of spells that we're going to be seeing with Kinnan, Coma beats a lot of them. It's also only 7 mana, which is the exact same, so it's no-brainer really. Play the Coma, start to get the Serpents, and we have we have an indestructible threat on the board, which can also stop Cityscape Leveler from attacking, as we can sacrifice the Serpent and tap the Cityscape Leveler before it attacks if they do go for that line. And still holding up Veil of Summer, so this is really the nuts with Kinnan. If you're the opponent for Kinnan here, this is not what you want to see at all. Even a big red sweeper doesn't work. A sweeper that's black sort of works, but Coma's just that powerful that it's probably going to win the game regardless at this point. And you're still, as the Crucias player, you're not going ahead with the reanimate plan just yet. If you're going for that, and you have to have that. So yeah, going for Unearth, and this is just. I mean, I don't know what Crucias had in hand, but considering that Coma can just tap the Cityscape Leveler, that's 8 mana do nothing to a Serpent. And so here I'm just taking the opportunity to get a Kinnan activation off, see if I can find something useful before I go for that line where I tap down the Cityscape Leveler. Here, sure, I'm going to tap it down now. Still holding up, again, Veil of Summer and Kinnan activation. And opponent's just facing lethal on board, I think. It's rather a lot of damage, even if I manage to blank off the Kinnan activation, which I still have access to, given the 6 treasure tokens. Here the opponent is about to fire off a spell, considering it. I mean, it's not much they can do. Board wipe was what they had to have. At this point, Veil of Summer is just excellent. May as well draw the free card off as a whole first. Yeah, Veil of Summer, drawing another card, also protection. Also just perfect for Kinnan, as we're, each treasure's tapping for 2 mana. Kinnan wants 7. Finding 2 great hits and taking the one that does a little bit more, puts a lot more pressure on the life total. Honestly, it could have been any of these things because they don't have mana up and it's going to be a lethal swing. So, yeah, an opponent finally concedes. Into game 2, we're taking the perspective of Crucias, my opponent, who, looking at a couple hands. This one's a bit awkward as well, no red, but they're choosing to pick it on the back of Mind Spike. Also, Marching Wretched Sorrow as removal for Mana Dork. They see some 3 ramp pieces, which is, in terms of my checklist for keeping Kinnan hands, I want at least 3 pieces. Ideally though, I want something on 1, and I didn't have that this hand, so it might have been a mistake to keep that and mulligan aggressively for a 1-drop. Either way, this was the hand I kept, and Cold Steel Heart being played. Opponent still not... Oh! Opponent drew the mountain, so I completely missed that, but they dug themselves out of that hole pretty quickly, which is fortunate for them. They're choosing to keep Seasoned Pyromancer and Brotherhood's End. Brotherhood's End making a lot of sense, as it is going to hit Kinnan and a lot of the Mana Dorks. It's also going to hit Mind Stone and Cold Steel Heart if they choose the other mode that destroys all artifacts with CMC 3 or less. It does also blow up their treasure tokens though, but if they have to crack the treasure token to cast a double red, then it doesn't really matter. It's a free attack, makes sense, just take my life total down, give Kinnan less time to ramp up and play some powerful threats, and choosing, I think, to just kill Kinnan now. They don't have a Mana Dork to kill, but if they wait until end step, they would, because I have the revealed enchantment in hand that I can discard for 2 to create a Mana Dork, which I'm pretty sure is exactly what I go for, and it's possible that killing that would be correct. Either way, much wretched sorrow coming down and killing Kinnan. If I replay Kinnan with the Mana Dork next turn, Brotherhood's End is still set up to sweep the board, so it's not a terrible idea there to go for Kinnan instead. If I stumble on lands or some other sort of ramp, then it will be quite difficult to get back in the game. The hand here for Crucias not actually looking too good, but Brotherhood's End is set up to do enough. It is unfortunate it does kill Crucias, but there is also Feigned Death in hand, which gets around that card by bringing Crucias back alive again with no worries. Here Reclamation Sage coming down. I'm guessing, I can't remember exactly what I had in hand, but I'm guessing I didn't have much going on, and just taking rid of a treasure token, hopefully trying to get something going here. I think they're looking at Brotherhood's End here, so with the Feigned Death, you can sweep the Kinnan board, or you can Feign Death first, bring back Kinnan as a 4/4 if they double block, and then Brotherhood's End can take care of either the Mana Dork or the Cold Steel Heart. Cold Steel Heart is kind of, well, it's harder to get to because it's an artifact, and in red-black, well, at least with this list, a lot more of the removal is pointing at creatures. But as the choice was not to double block, instead Brotherhood End is just going to hit the board. Clean 3 for 1, or 3 for 2, I suppose. And saving Kinnan with the Feigned Death. And yeah, really disrupting Kinnan. Kinnan, though, if they find a land, can recast Kinnan, and then already they're, well, I suppose I am ramping up. Top decking removal, just scout out if there's any counter magic or anything. Instead, just a whole pile of fatties, costing 7 or more. So if Kinnan, well, as Kinnan, really wanting to see land on top just to start casting Kinnan, and then casting 3 7-drops in hand if that ever happens, then there's actually really good winning chances, even though currently the advantage is with Crucias. And here, the decision between Infernal Grasp and just wait a turn to play the Eldest Reborn, I actually prefer waiting and casting the Eldest Reborn, as Coma is a legitimate issue without that instant speed interaction. So if you instead, on this turn, you cast something like the Eldest Reborn, because you know Coma's in hand, you still kill Kinnan, you get all the effects off the Eldest Reborn saga, and then you also have instant speed removal for Coma. However, this doesn't happen, and I just draw a Mana Dork. So if I drew land there and played Coma, I would have had stability, really. But in this case, I got unlucky, and so this play worked out for Crucias because they find exactly lethal if I don't block, and I didn't block. So I missed that line during the game as the Kinnan player, but from that position, it was getting harder and harder to win. I think rather impossible given the situation. But anyway, moving on to game 3, and here the hand for Crucias is fantastic. So you have Disruption with Duress, you have Disruption as well with the 2-drop Elf, the Elderfang Disciple. You also have Grim Tutor to find powerful things to reanimate or just something to do with the board, and Seasoned Pyromancer just a good solid card, as well as the perfect mana base, right? We have 3 lands covering 2 black and 3 red sources, so that's completely covered as well. Kinnan sort of hand dumping here. It's a little bit spooky, but taking the last card out of hand is extremely advantageous. Platinum Angel, I suppose, not the strongest threat ever. But Burn Down the House is just such a brutal draw. With Crucias coming down on turn 3, you can play the burn down the house in turn 4 off the treasure token. And Kinnan here, unfortunately, not finding like an Elvish Mystic. Instead of they're finding 2 1-drop dorks that need another creature to tap with before they have access to 7 mana for Kinnan ability. Here, I was really happy as the Kinnan player. I just found Kira, which provided that extra dork to activate the ability with. But instead, just burned down the house, the absolute nut draw from the Crucias perspective, cleaning everything up. I'm stuck on, I can't cast anything, I have three forests in play, nothing on board, and so I'm just conceding there pretty easily.